of the Heartbreak Boys road trip, and I'm back in the UK, and I'm in the sunny seaside town of Skegness, Lincolnshire, with the one and only William Hussey of Hideous Beauty. Hello, Bill.
Hello. That's my book as well, not a description of me, isn't it?
Absolutely. The lovely Hideous Beauty, which is out in June. Now, Bill, everyone has been bringing something to my little virtual campfire for this trip. What delights do you have for us today that you've brought along?
I've got some starburst, or opal fruits, as they were known to in the old days.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, starburst, because my characters in Hideous Beauty, Dylan especially, is obsessed with starburst. He loves them. He's just a dog food addict. So, in honor of Dylan's,
they are a fruity tropical treat, no less.
Yeah.
Bit of
They're one of your 5 a day.
Absolutely right, they certainly are. Now, for anyone watching who hasn't yet encountered the delight that is Hideous Beauty, and I did love it very, very much, as I think you know. What's it? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So it's about 2 boys, Dylan and Ellis, and they meet each other in this small town. They fall in love, but they keep their relationship secret because Dylan, although he apparently comes from a very liberal family, is quite closeted, and we find out why during the course of the story. So the story opens with them. Their relationship has just been exposed at school through social media, and they go to a high school dance and they get quite a good reception. But on the way home from the dance, there's a tragic accident, and this kind of kickstarts the story. And Dylan is, the rest of the story, has to figure out why he was rescued from this accident and why Ellis was left to die. And the story is a kind of whodunit, a kind of twisty, turny mystery, but it also examines, as Dylan finds out what happened, he exposes the layers of prejudice within this seemingly liberal town. So yeah,
it is. I mean, when I read it, I thought it was a totally stunning story and so atmospheric. And of course, it's also it's quite a dark story, isn't it? With death and so forth, and dealing with grief and tragedy and that sort of thing. Now, I write quite frothy rom-coms myself, jokes and lightheartedness. And before Hideous Beauty, you wrote some horror stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'd written, for a few years, horror novels, YA horror novels. But this was, they were kind of very plot-driven stories. So I think I kind of retained that element of the kind of dark plot-driven element in Hideous Beauty. But I got to the point where I wanted to write something a bit more personal about my experiences of small town prejudice and homophobia. And I thought I needed to do that within a love story, and also a bit more character driven as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think it's kind of like that was my apprenticeship. Sorry? What
is it about the small town aspect? Because all of my books as well are set in small towns. I put Noah in a horrific small town, and in Alice in Wonderland, they're also in a small seaside town, not unlike Skegness, where you are, maybe.
Yeah.
But what is it, do you think, about small towns and the LGBT experience that makes that such a kind of good setting for these stories?
Well, I think it's funny because your books, although you kind of brilliantly use comedy to expose the same kinds of difficulties that LGBT kids face, and it's because it's this little microcosm. And I often say to friends who live in, say, London or Manchester or Brighton, who've got used to the fact that they're able to go out and be together and be publicly seen together, that actually 99% of the UK still isn't like that. And most are like the small towns that we write about, where you couldn't really necessarily guarantee an LGBTQ person's safety walking through a town, if they're holding hands with their partner and that kind of stuff, or at least you can guarantee they're going to have a great time. So I think those kind of small towns represent the majority of the LGBTQ experience rather than what the excitement and glamour of a larger city experience would be like.
Yeah, and I wonder as well, there's also that sense of wanting to escape those places sometimes as well. I mean, like in Heartbreak Boys, Jack and Nate literally get on the road and escape their hideous experience at prom, and your guys as well in Hideous Beauty. I mean, you're right near the beginning, you know, before the tragedy and stuff. They're literally in the car as well, aren't they? And kind of making, in a sense, their escape.
Yeah, and we start the story where they're very much discussing what they're going to do when they get to uni in Bristol. And I don't know about you, I know you grew up in Lincolnshire as well, about the same kind of time as me, is that yearning just to be out of this kind of very narrow, conservative, with a small C and a large C in Lincolnshire, very conservative background that you're kind of existing in, and feeling that you're kind of not flourishing at all, and not kind of not being able to be who you are. So yeah, I think, but as your boys discover in Heartbreak Boys as well, just because you escape the town doesn't mean that you don't take the town with you. You know, and also there are worse places, as your boys discover as well.
There certainly are, absolutely. And you can't run away from yourself ultimately, can you? That's the thing. So absolutely. Bill, this book came out, Hideous Beauty came out in June, didn't it? Which was right in the middle of lockdown. What was it like launching this book during the middle of a global pandemic?
I know, I was absolutely terrified that it would totally sink without a trace. I really was. And we had discussions with Usborne about, do we delay publication or not? And ultimately decided to go ahead with it, just because we built up a bit of head of steam with reviews and stuff by that point. But I think from a story point of view, and I know you said the same with Heartbreak Boys, both of these books are set summer, like spring, summer 2020, and yet no one is social distancing. It's a kind of like, so our books exist in this slightly separate universe where the global pandemic, and who doesn't want to escape to that universe?
Right, that's my thinking exactly. I mean, who cares about you shouldn't, kiss random people and stuff, or whatever you're supposed to not do. I think absolutely, let's forget about all that. It's all fine in our worlds, sort of.
Absolutely. And
what about the whole world of UK YA at the moment, and especially LGBT books? How have you seen that kind of develop and change over the last few years, and to where we are now of interest?
Well, as I was saying, I'd written kind of like non-LGBTQ specific. There were LGBTQ characters in some of these horror stories, but up until probably 2016, I was writing them. Then I took a little break, and honestly, then I started research because I wanted to write this book, and I just thought, what is the UK scene like for these kind of books? And there just wasn't a lot. I think your first Noah book came out 2017. That was one of the first ones I read as a bit of, and was kind of immediately intimidated because it was so good. But it was there wasn't a lot about, and I know we've said before that if you go back a couple of years before that, before 2017, I know authors who were getting knockbacks on LGBTQ books with main characters saying, "Oh, we love the story, but can we have this as a straight character instead?" So you're talking, not very long ago.
No.
5 years ago, the publishing industry was different 5 years ago. I just think it's been a complete revolution in it. I think editors have come in who are very enthusiastic for own voice, LGBTQ narratives. There is a willingness, to have these stories out there, not just within publishing, but crucially, school librarians who the absolute champions for books like ours out there. So, I think there's been almost a little generational shift within 5 years, and so many great authors are coming through as well. So, yeah, I'm really optimistic about it.
Exciting times. We've come a long way, which is
absolutely.
Bill, it's been fantastic chatting to you around my virtual campfire, but where am I heading next?
You are going to see the absolutely gorgeous George Lester.
Yes.
Of Boy Queen fame, and it's coming out August, I think. Is it August? And I've read it. I know you've read it. It's absolutely brilliant. Everyone should pre-order it. He is in Twickenham. So Twickenham, that's where you're going next.
I'm going to hit the road and head on down to George, but really nice to chat to you, Bill. Thank you so much.
You too, Simon. Take care.
Take care.